When you picture an American police car, you probably see the same thing almost everyone else does. A black and white sedan, radio antenna on the roof, two officers inside, gliding down a city street. That image is so universal it feels like it was always there. It wasn't. That picture was built deliberately, brilliantly, and largely in one city by one man between 1950 and 1970. His name was William H. Parker, and he ran the Los Angeles Police Department. He didn't invent the police car, but he did something arguably more powerful. He took the modern cop car, perfected it, and then sold it to the entire country, using television to burn the LAPD black and white into the American imagination so deeply that we still see it every single day. This is the story of how that happened. Between 1950 and 1970, American policing finished a transformation it had been inching toward for decades, from the officer on the footbeat to the officer in the radio car. Lots of departments made that shift, but only one made it iconic. And here's the honest part, because it matters. Parker did not invent car-based policing. That credit belongs to earlier reformers, August Vollmer, who put Berkeley officers in radio-equipped cars back in the 1910s and the 20s, and his protege O.W. Wilson, who literally wrote the textbook on motorized preventive patrol and spread it to departments across the country. The factory police package, too, already existed at Ford by 1950, before Parker's reforms hit full stride. What Parker did was take that existing model and execute it at a scale and with a discipline that nobody else matched, and then do the one thing none of the earlier reformers had done. He made it famous. You'll see how he rebuilt a corrupt department around the patrol car. You'll see how he used two of the most popular shows on television to sell that vision to America. And you'll see why, even today, the cop car in your head is a William Parker car. To understand what Parker built, you have to understand the wreck he inherited. By the late 1940s, the LAPD was a national embarrassment, riddled with corruption, vice payoffs, and cozy ties between officers and the criminals they were supposed to police. Chiefs came and went in disgrace, and the city around the department was exploding outward. Los Angeles had ballooned in population during and after World War II, sprawling across hundreds of square miles of new neighborhoods that the old footbeat model simply could not cover. On August 9, 1950, the city made William H. Parker chief. He was 45 years old, a decorated World War II veteran, and a man with a reputation for being rigid, humorless, and absolutely obsessed with order. He had spent his early career keeping his distance from a corrupt police culture, no small feat in the LAPD of that era, and his closest friends knew him by a nickname that hinted at his hard edges, Whiskey Bill. Parker had a theory about corruption, and it shaped everything. He believed the footbeat itself was the problem, an officer planted in one neighborhood, week after week, building relationships with the local shopkeepers and the local crooks alike, was an officer who could be compromised. His answer was the patrol car. A car was mobile. A car could be anywhere. A car was supervised by radio and harder to tie into local vice. So Parker pushed the LAPD hard toward radio-equipped car patrol as the backbone of the entire department, accelerating the shift the reformers before him had been advocating, but doing it with the resources and discipline of one of the largest forces in the country. He also did something quieter that's easy to overlook. Parker was the chief who began to desegregate the LAPD as the civil rights era dawned, and he deliberately shrank the size of the force relative to the city's population, betting that fewer, better trained, more professional officers would mean less corruption. The car-centric model was the tool that let a smaller force cover a bigger city. Parker's LAPD standardized the elements that would come to define the American cop car. The department leaned heavily toward two officer cars, a driver and a partner sharing a radio, watching each other's work, keeping each other honest. And then there was the look. The black and white, with a dark body and white doors, became the department's calling card. The scheme was not strictly Parker's invention. The idea of a high-contrast, two-tone police car was about visibility and unmistakability. The California Highway Patrol had chosen white cars from its founding in 1929, precisely so they would stand out against the mostly black civilian traffic of the day. But Parker standardized the LAPD black and white and made it mean something. The white doors carried the unit number, the city seal, and the LAPD insignia in big, clear characters, readable from a block away. To Parker, the patrol car was not just transportation, it was advertising, and the product it advertised was police presence itself. There was a hardware catch, though, and it's the part of the story the legend usually skips. The cars departments could buy off the lot weren't built for this work. A standard civilian sedan of the early 1950s was a fine family car, but it was never designed to idle for hours powering a radio, carry two big officers and a load of gear, and accelerate hard out of stops hundreds of times a shift. This is exactly why the factory police package mattered, and the timeline is worth getting right. Ford introduced the first factory police package in 1950, Chevrolet followed in 1955, and Chrysler's Dodge package arrived in 1956. A high-volume buyer like the LAPD, constantly replacing large numbers of cars, was exactly the kind of customer that pushed Detroit to keep toughening those packages. By the 1960s, the LAPD was running fleets of Chrysler products, Plymouths and Dodges, in significant numbers, the very black and whites that were about to become television stars. Here's where Parker's real genius shows, and it has nothing to do with engines. Parker had run military public relations during World War II, and he understood something most police chiefs of his era never grasped: that public perception was a battle you could win on purpose. He gave American policing one of its most enduring phrases. In speeches throughout the 1950s, Parker repeatedly described his officers as the thin blue line, the slender barrier standing between civilized society and total anarchy. The phrase was so effective that it spread nationwide and is still used and fought over today. Parker popularized it as a piece of deliberate messaging, and it worked. But a phrase in a speech only reaches the people in the room. Parker wanted the whole country, and to get it, he turned to television. Dragnet had begun as a radio drama in 1949 and moved to NBC television in 1951, created by and starring Jack Webb as the flat, methodical Sergeant Joe Friday. What most people don't know is how tightly Parker controlled it. When Webb wanted to produce the show, Parker offered him something irresistible: unlimited LAPD cooperation, real case files, real procedures, real authenticity, on one condition. The department's Public Information Division got to vet the scripts. Parker kept Webb on a short leash. He insisted, for example, that the show never use the word cop, which Parker considered derogatory. The officers on Dragnet were written to be exactly what Parker wanted America to see: ethical, efficient, terse, scientific, incorruptible. And the details became cultural landmarks. Joe Friday's badge number was 714, so iconic that the syndicated version of the show was literally retitled Badge 714. Friday's clipped catchphrase, "Just the facts, ma'am," became shorthand for the entire technocratic, no-nonsense style of policing Parker was selling. The black and white Ford on screen, the radio codes, the deadpan professionalism. It was, in the words of one historian, the perfect advertising for a reinvented police force. Parker was so committed to the medium that in 1952 he produced his own LAPD television program, a panel show called, naturally, The Thin Blue Line, on which Parker himself often appeared to answer the public's questions and, critics said, deliver outright propaganda for his department. The chief wasn't just cooperating with television, he was making it. If you love this stuff, the real history behind the cars and the culture, subscribe. There's a new badges and chrome story every week. In 1968, Webb launched a new show that would do for the patrol car what Dragnet had done for the detective. It was called Adam 12, and it was set almost entirely inside a single LAPD black and white. Webb, by his own account, wanted the vehicle itself to be considered a character, and that's exactly what happened. Officers Pete Malloy and Jim Reed patrolled Los Angeles in their cruiser, and for millions of viewers, that car became the cop car. Even the title was a piece of real LAPD radio culture. One Adam 12 wasn't random, it was a working call sign decoded straight from the department's dispatch system. The 1 was the division. Adam was the LAPD's phonetic letter A, which specifically designated a 2-officer patrol unit, Parker's signature 2-man car, baked right into the show's name. And 12 was the beat. So the title of one of the most popular police shows in America was, quietly, an advertisement for the exact patrol model Parker had built. The cars themselves were real LAPD spec vehicles, and Webb tried to keep them accurate to what the department was actually driving, Plymouth Belvederes and satellites in the early seasons. Then, for the final seasons, the show switched to a 1972 AMC Matador equipped with a 401 cubic inch V8. According to former officers, that Matador's strong power-to-weight ratio made it a genuinely good pursuit car, though it needed more servicing than the rest of the fleet. To this day, it is the car many Adam 12 fans remember best. The point is the realism. When America watched Adam 12, it was looking at an accurate picture of an LAPD black and white doing its job. The line between the real department and the televised one had all but disappeared, which was exactly what Parker had spent 2 decades engineering. It's tempting to say Parker invented the modern cop car. He didn't, and the true story is better. The car-centric, radio-dispatched model was pioneered by Vollmer and codified by O.W. Wilson decades earlier. The factory police package came from Detroit. What Parker uniquely did was fuse 3 things that had never been fused before: a disciplined, professionalized, car-based department, a deliberate public relations philosophy built on the thin blue line, and an unprecedented partnership with the most powerful medium of the age. He took a model that already existed and made it the model, the one other cities pictured when they modernized, and the one America pictured when it imagined a cop at all. Through the 1950s and the 1960s, big city departments across the country shifted decisively toward the radio patrol car, and the footbeat officer faded from the center of American policing. The 2-officer black and white became the default image of law enforcement on the street and on the screen. Detroit's factories scaled up to feed that demand, and the through line runs straight from those years to the Crown Victorias, the Chargers, and the Tahoes that patrol America today. But the model Parker built had a dark side, and honesty requires naming it. The same philosophy that made the LAPD efficient, fewer officers, mobile and detached, rolling through neighborhoods in sealed black and whites rather than walking them, also pulled officers away from the communities they policed. To many residents, especially in black neighborhoods, the LAPD became an aggressive occupying force that arrived in cars, made arrests, and left. In August 1965, that tension exploded into the Watts Uprising, 6 days of unrest that left 34 people dead, over 1,000 injured, and tens of millions in property damage. Parker's response and rhetoric during the crisis are widely seen as having made things worse, and his legacy on race has been criticized ever since. Parker stayed on as chief until his death from a heart attack in July 1966, and the LAPD honored him so completely that when Jack Webb himself died in 1982, the department gave the civilian TV producer a full police funeral with a 21-gun salute and retired Joe Friday's badge number 714. That's how thoroughly Parker had merged the real department with its television image. The man who played a cop got buried like one. The debate over whether Parker's model made cities safer or simply more policed has never ended. But whether he shaped the modern American cop car is not a debate at all. So go back to that image, the black and white, the antenna, the two officers, the unmistakable doors. It didn't come from Detroit exactly. Detroit built the cars. It didn't come from Parker inventing anything exactly. The model already existed. It came from one chief in one city who took that model, executed it better than anyone, wrapped it in a phrase, the thin blue line, and then used Dragnet and Adam 12 to project it onto every television set in America until the whole country agreed, without ever quite deciding to, that this is what a police car looks like. Parker didn't invent the cop car, but the cop car in your head, that one's his. This is Badges and Chrome, the channel that covers the police car's history almost forgot. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.